From the beginning, God made heaven and earth. For those who believe exactly this, the position, the location of the earth in the cosmos or space could be only one, at the center, geocentric, and in terms of motion, stationary, unmoved, geostatic. Scriptural passages about the stability, immobility of the earth. If you can rightly say that Scripture does not indicate anywhere that the earth is strictly in the middle of the universe, however, it is clearly stated that it is still, unmoving, immobile, or geostatic. This excludes in texts related to these things, absolutely, any rotational movement, be it a daily one on its axis or a yearly orbital one around the sun. These movements of the earth have not, as we shall see below, any sense, theologically, physically, or astronomically, being just some suggestions of some thinkers who have sought alternate explanations to the scriptural and patristic ones. Scriptural passages are found in many Psalms, 18, 15, 78, 75, 93:2, 96:10, 102:25. Thou didst set the earth on its foundations, so that it should never be shaken. Psalm 104:5. And in order not to be accused that we are stacked as the neo-Protestant fundamentalists, in the strictest literal sense of the word, we bring the interpretation of the blessed Theodoret of Cyrus, who laid the foundations of the earth, and Achille and Sema over his stay, that it should not be removed forever. Because putting the foundations over itself gave to it the stillness, and it will remain so as long as he, the Creator, wishes. Thus saith, and elsewhere, hanging the earth over nothing. Psalms 119:90, Thou hast established the earth, and it abideth. The blessed Theodoret, Thou hast established the earth, and it abideth. By thy order the days stay on. You gave the land long-lasting stability, and it remained as you commanded. Job 26:5 and 6, Job 38:4-8, Isaiah 13:10 through 13, Isaiah 44:23 and 24, Isaiah 48:13, Proverbs 3:19, 8:27 through 29. A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. Ecclesiastes 1:4. John 17:24, the Hebrew 1:10. Fear God, whose command was reinforced above the waters. The one who founded the earth on his strength and will not shake forever. Exorcisms at the Holy Baptism. The only exceptional case of earth motion is the earthquake, but in no case is it permanently rotating whatsoever, but demonstrates a temporary wobble or motion. 2 Samuel 22:8. The earth trembled and quaked. The foundations of the heavens shook. They trembled because he was angry. From 2 Samuel, Chronicles, Job, and Psalms and Isaiah, we have, the earth trembled and quaked. The foundations of the heavens shook. They trembled because he was angry. 1 Chronicles 16:30. Tremble before him, all the earth. The world is firmly established. It cannot be moved. Job 9:6. Who shakes the earth out of its place, and its pillars tremble? Which shaketh the earth out of her place, and the pillars thereof tremble. Psalm 46:3. Though its waters roar and foam, and the mountains quake with their surging. Psalms 16:2 and 77:18. Regarding the trembling of the earth, we have, You have shaken the land and torn it open. Mend its fractures, for it is quaking. Psalm 68:8. The earth shook, the heavens poured down rain, before God, the one of Sinai, before God. the God of Israel. Psalm 77:18. Your thunder was heard in the whirlwind. Your lightning lit up the world. The earth trembled and quaked. Now from Isaiah 13:13. Therefore I will make the heavens tremble, and the earth will shake from its place at the wrath of the Lord Almighty, in the day of his burning anger. For I will shake the heavens, the earth will move from its place when the Lord of heaven's armies displays his wrath in the day of his fierce anger. And again now from the King James Bible. Therefore I will shake the heavens, and the earth shall remove out of her place, in the wrath of the Lord of hosts, and in the day of his fierce anger. 24:18 from the NIV. Whoever flees at the sound of terror will fall into a pit. Whoever climbs out of the pit will be caught in a snare. The floodgates of the heavens are opened. The foundations of the earth shake. And from the King James Bible. And it shall come to pass, that he who fleeth from the noise of the fear shall fall into the pit. And he that cometh up out of the midst of the pit shall be taken in the snare. For the windows from on high are open, and the foundations of the earth do shake. As to this subject, what need is there to discuss whether the earth hangs in the air or rests on the water? From this would arise a controversy as to whether the nature of the air, which is slight and yielding, is such as to sustain a mass of earth. Also the question would arise, if the earth rested on the waters, would not the earth by its weight fall and sink into the waters? Or would not the waters of the sea give way to the earth, and move from its accustomed place? Would not the sea pour itself over the borders of the land? There are many, too, who have maintained that the earth, placed in the midst of the air, remains motionless there by its own weight. As to this subject, let us reflect on what was said by the Lord to his servant Job, when he spoke through the clouds. Then the Lord spoke to Job out of the storm. He said, Who is this that obscures my plans, with words without knowledge? Brace yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me if you understand who marked off its dimensions. Surely you know. Who stretched a measuring line across it? On what were its footings set? Or who laid its cornerstone? While the morning stars sang together, and all the angels shouted for joy. Who shut up the sea behind doors, when it burst forth from the womb? When I made the clouds its garment, and wrapped it in thick darkness, when I fixed limits for it, and set its doors and bars in place, when I said, This far you may come, and no farther. Here is where your proud waves halt. Have you ever given orders to the morning, or shown the dawn its place, that it might take the earth by the edges, and shake the wicked out of it? The earth takes shape like clay under a seal. Its features stand out like those of a garment. The wicked are denied their light, and their upraised arm is broken. Have you journeyed to the springs of the sea, or walked in the recesses of the deep? Have the gates of death been shown to you? Have you seen the gates of the deepest darkness? Have you comprehended the vast expanses of the earth? Tell me if you know all this. What is the way to the abode of light? And where does darkness reside? Can you take them to their places? Do you know the paths to their dwellings? Surely you know, for you were already born. You have lived so many years. Have you entered the storehouses of the snow, or seen the storehouses of the hail, which I reserve for times of trouble, for days of war and battle? What is the way to the place where the lightning is dispersed, or the place where the east winds are scattered over the earth? Who cuts a channel for the torrents of rain, and a path for the thunderstorm, to water a land where no one lives, an uninhabited desert, to satisfy a desolate wasteland, and make it sprout with grass? Does the rain have a father? Who fathers the drops of dew? From whose womb comes the ice? Who gives birth to the frost from the heavens, when the waters become hard as stone? when the surface of the deep is frozen? Can you bind the chains of the Pleiades? Can you loosen Orion's belt? Can you bring forth the constellations in their seasons? Or lead out the bear with its cubs? Do you know the laws of the heavens? Can you set up God's dominion over the earth? Can you raise your voice to the clouds and cover yourself with a flood of water? Do you send the lightning bolts on their way? Do they report to you, "Here we are"? Who gives the ibis wisdom, or gives the rooster understanding? Who has the wisdom to count the clouds? Who can tip over the water jars of the heavens when the dust becomes hard and the clods of earth stick together? Do you hunt the prey for the lioness and satisfy the hunger of the lions when they crouch in their dens or lie in wait in a thicket? Who provides food for the raven when its young cry out to God and wander about for lack of food? Do you know when the mountain goats give birth? Do you watch when the doe bears her fawn? Do you count the months till they bear? Do you know the time they give birth? They crouch down and bring forth their young. Their labor pains are ended. Their young thrive and grow strong in the wilds. They leave and do not return. Who let the wild donkey go free? Who untied its ropes? I gave it the wasteland as its home, the salt flats as its habitat. It laughs at the commotion in the town. It does not hear a driver's shout. It ranges the hills for its pasture and searches for any green thing. Will the wild ox consent to serve you? Will it stay by your manger at night? Can you hold it to the furrow with a harness? Will it till the valleys behind you? Will you rely on it for its great strength? Will you leave your heavy work to it? Can you trust it to haul in your grain and bring it to your threshing floor? The wings of the ostrich flap joyfully, though they cannot compare with the wings and feathers of the stork. She lays her eggs on the ground and lets them warm in the sand, unmindful that a foot may crush them, that some wild animal may trample them. She treats her young harshly, as if they were not hers. She cares not that her labor was in vain, for God did not endow her with wisdom or give her a share of good sense. Yet when she spreads her feathers to run, she laughs at horse and rider. Do you give the horse its strength or clothe its neck with a flowing mane? Do you make it leap like a locust, striking terror with its proud snorting? It paws fiercely, rejoicing in its strength, and charges into the fray. It laughs at fear, afraid of nothing. It does not shy away from the sword. The quiver rattles against its side, along with the flashing spear and lance. In frenzied excitement it eats up the ground. It cannot stand still when the trumpet sounds. At the blast of the trumpet it snorts, "Aha!" It catches the scent of battle from afar, the shout of commanders and the battle cry. Does the hawk take flight by your wisdom and spread its wings toward the south? Does the eagle soar at your command and build its nest on high? It dwells on a cliff and stays there at night. A rocky crag is its stronghold. From there it looks for food. Its eyes detect it from afar. Its young ones feast on blood, and where the slain are, there it is. The Lord said to Job, "Will the one who contends with the Almighty correct him? Let him who accuses God answer him." Then Job answered the Lord, "I am unworthy. How can I reply to you? I put my hand over my mouth. I spoke once, but I have no answer. Twice, but I will say no more." Then the Lord spoke to Job out of the storm. "Brace yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me. Would you discredit my justice? Would you condemn me to justify yourself? Do you have an arm like God's? And can your voice thunder like his? Then adorn yourself with glory and splendor, and clothe yourself in honor and majesty. Unleash the fury of your wrath. Look at all who are proud and bring them low. Look at all who are proud and humble them. Crush the wicked where they stand. Bury them all in the dust together. shroud their faces in the grave. Then I myself will admit to you that your own right hand can save you. Look at Behemoth, which I made along with you, and which feeds on grass like an ox. What strength it has in its loins, what power in the muscles of its belly. Its tail sways like a cedar, the sinews of its thighs are close knit. Its bones are tubes of bronze, its limbs like rods of iron. It ranks first among the works of God, yet its maker can approach it with his sword. The hills bring it their produce, and all the wild animals play nearby. Under the lotus plants it lies, hidden among the reeds in the marsh. The lotuses conceal it in their shadow. The poplars by the stream surround it. A raging river does not alarm it. It is secure, though the Jordan should surge against its mouth. Can anyone capture it by the eyes, or trap it and pierce its nose? Can you pull in Leviathan with a fishhook, or tie down its tongue with a rope? Can you put a cord through its nose, or pierce its jaw with a hook? Will it keep begging you for mercy? Will it speak to you with gentle words? Will it make an agreement with you for you to take it as your slave for life? Can you make a pet of it like a bird, or put it on a leash for the young women in your house? Will traders barter for it? Will they divide it up among the merchants? Can you fill its hide with harpoons, or its head with fishing spears? If you lay a hand on it, you will remember the struggle and never do it again. Any hope of subduing it is false. The mere sight of it is overpowering. No one is fierce enough to rouse it. Who then is able to stand against me? Who has a claim against me that I must pay? Everything under heaven belongs to me. I will not fail to speak of Leviathan's limbs, its strength and its graceful form. Who can strip off its outer coat? Who can penetrate its double coat of armor? Who dares open the doors of its mouth, ringed about with fearsome teeth? Its back has rows of shields, tightly sealed together. Each is so close to the next that no air can pass between. They are joined fast to one another. They cling together and cannot be parted. Its snorting throws out flashes of light. Its eyes are like the rays of dawn. Flames stream from its mouth. Sparks of fire shoot out. Smoke pours from its nostrils, as from a boiling pot over burning reeds. Its breath sets coals ablaze, and flames dart from its mouth. Strength resides in its neck. Dismay goes before it. The folds of its flesh are tightly joined. They are firm and immovable. Its chest is hard as rock, hard as a lower millstone. When it rises up, the mighty are terrified. They retreat before its thrashing. The sword that reaches it has no effect, nor does the spear or the dart or the javelin. Iron it treats like straw, and bronze like rotten wood. Arrows do not make it flee. Slingstones are like chaff to it. A club seems to it but a piece of straw. It laughs at the rattling of the lance. Its undersides are jagged potsherds, leaving a trail in the mud like a threshing sledge. It makes the depths churn like a boiling cauldron, and stirs up the sea like a pot of ointment. It leaves a glistening wake behind it. One would think the deep had white hair. Nothing on earth is its equal, a creature without fear. It looks down on all that are haughty. It is king over all that are proud. Then Job replied to the Lord, I know that you can do all things. No purpose of yours can be thwarted. You asked, who is this that obscures my plans without knowledge? Surely I spoke of things I did not understand, things too wonderful for me to know. You said, listen now and I will speak. I will question you and you shall answer me. My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. Therefore I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes. Thou hast understanding. Who hath laid the measures thereof, if thou knowest? Or who hath stretched the line upon it? Or upon what are the circles grounded? Does not God clearly show that all things are established by his majesty, not by number, weight, and measures? For the creature has not given the law, rather he accepts it or abides by that which has been accepted. The earth is therefore not suspended in the middle of the universe like a balance hung in equilibrium, but the majesty of God holds it together by the law of his own will, so that what is steadfast should prevail over the void and unstable. The prophet David also bears witness to this when he says, "He has founded the earth upon its own bases. It shall not be moved forever and ever." Psalm 104:5. There, certainly God is asserted to be not merely an artist, but one who is omnipotent, as one, according to his command, did not allow it to sway. When we read, "I have established the pillars thereof," Psalm 74:4, we cannot believe that the world was supported actually by columns, but rather by that power that props up the substance of the earth and sustains it. How the disposition of the earth therefore depends upon the power of God, you may learn also where it is written, "He looketh upon the earth and maketh it tremble," Psalm 103:32, and elsewhere. "One again I move the earth," Haggai 2:7. Therefore the earth remains immovable, not by its balances, but is moved frequently by the nod and free will of God, Job 9:6. As Job 2 says, "The Lord shaketh it from its foundations, and the pillars thereof tremble," Job 26:6-8. By the will of God, therefore, the earth remains immovable. The earth standeth forever, according to Ecclesiastes 1:4, yet is moved and nods according to the will of God. It does not therefore continue to exist because based on its own foundations. It does not stay stable because of its own props. The Lord established it by the support of his will, because in his hand are all the ends of the earth, Psalm 94:4. The simplicity of this faith is worth all the proffered proofs. The earth, placed in the midst of the air, remains motionless there by its own weight, because it extends itself equally on all sides. St. Ambrose of Mediolanum, the Hexameron. And wells, again, and rivers will never exist without the earth. But the earth is not supported upon itself, but is set upon the realm of the waters, while this again is kept in its place, being bound fast at the center of the universe. St. Athanasius against the heathen. The earth is one of the four elements, dry, cold, heavy, motionless, brought into being by God, out of nothing on the first day. For, in the beginning, he said, God created the heaven and the earth, but the seat and foundation of the earth no man has been able to declare. Some indeed hold that its seat is the waters. Thus the divine David says, "To him who established the earth on the waters," Psalm 136:6. Others place it in the air. Again, some others say, "He who hangeth the earth on nothing," Job 26:7. And again, David, the singer of God, says as though the representative of God, "I bear up the pillars of it," Psalm 75:3, meaning by pillars the force that sustains it. Further, the expression, "He hath founded it upon the seas," Psalm 24:2, shows clearly that the earth is on all hands surrounded with water. But whether we grant that it is established on itself, or on air, or on water, or on nothing, we must not turn aside from reverent thought, but must admit that all things are sustained and preserved by the power of the Creator. St. John Damascene, an exact exposition of the Orthodox faith. Let us not be deceived by the phrase, "the seat and foundation of the earth no man has been able to declare." This is by no means, "where is the seat of the earth?" because as we have showed, the testimonies are clear, but only that it is a patristic research for the foundation of the earth, nothing more. The need for this research derives not only from logical and scientific reasons invoked by those physicists, but rather from the fact that the earth is the only inhabited celestial body, i.e. the bearer of life, upon which was to embody in about 5,500 years the Son of God. God destined the earth instead the place of the center of the universe, having as prescience the economy of universal salvation through the incarnation birth, passion, resurrection, and ascension to heaven. All this happened in spirit, but also in flesh, i.e. in the physical plane. Where else? In the center of the earth, which is at the center of the universe, where it was fitting to the King of Kings. You have wrought salvation in the midst of the earth. Christ God, you stretched out your immaculate hands on the cross, so gathering together all the nations, who cry, Lord, glory to you. Troparian tone, 2, 6th hour, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday in the Great Lent. We have thus a first time, days 1, 2, and 3, in which there is only heaven, i.e. the universe, the cosmos, and the only celestial body, the earth. The works of God are great, terrible, and incomprehensible, but that doesn't mean that it's absurd, without logic, or pointless. Teleology or teleology says about heaven and his subsequent ornament that they were made for the earth, i.e. for the life that will appear on earth, where it will be made man, the crown of creation, God's image and likeness, and where God will incarnate, be born, will live, be crucified, will arise from which he will ascend to heaven, and upon which shall come again with glory to judge the living and the dead. Of course, whose kingdom shall have no end, and we know that his kingdom, the kingdom of heaven, is not of this world, but the place upon which occurred the creation and the events of the economy of salvation, aforementioned, is exactly the physical earth. In fact, not only spiritual, it is much less symbolic, as those so-called modern traditionalists would in vain try to interpret. The church fathers and writers continued to teach, but the earth is not supported upon itself, but is set upon the realm of the waters, while this again is kept in its place, being bound fast at the center of the universe. The earth has kept the place in the middle, giving it a sense of a center, and surrounding it with the waters of ocean, as to enhance the beauty of the blue garb, and then causing him to be the hearth, the mother and nanny to all living things across it, watering it with rain and water murmurs, and giving it the purpose to bring forth through its forest and its beautiful flowers, in order to increase joy in life. End quote. From Eusebius of Caesarea, Life of St. Constantine the Great, 4th century. And, quote, in the midst of the covering and veil, where the priests were allowed to enter, was situated the altar of incense, the symbol of the earth, placed in the middle of this universe, and from it came the fumes of incense. St. Basil, The Mystic Meaning of the Tabernacle. In the same way, as concerns the earth, let us resolve not to torment ourselves by trying to find out its essence, not to tire our reason by seeking for the substance which it conceals. If I ask you to leave these vain questions, I will not expect you to try and find out the earth's point of support. The mind would reel on beholding its reasonings, losing themselves without end. Do you say that the earth reposes on a bed of air? How then can this soft substance, without consistency, resist the enormous weight which presses upon it? How is it that it does not slip away in all directions, to avoid the sinking weight, and to spread itself over the mass which overwhelms it? Put then a limit to your thought, so that your curiosity in investigating the incomprehensible may not incur the reproaches of Job, and you be not asked by him, whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened? From Job 38:6. If ever you hear in the Psalms, I bear up the pillars of it, Psalm 74:3, see in these pillars the power which sustains it. You do not reflect the idea of the earth suspended by itself throws your reason into a like, but even greater difficulty, since from its nature it is heavier. But let us admit that the earth rests upon itself, or let us say that it rides the waters. We must still remain faithful to thought of true religion and recognize that all is sustained by the Creator's power. Let us then reply to ourselves, and let us reply to those who ask us upon what support this enormous mass rests. In his hands are the ends of the earth, Psalm 95:4. It is a doctrine as infallible for our own information as profitable for our hearers. There are inquirers into nature who, with a great display of words, give reasons for the immobility of the earth. Placed, they say, in the middle of the universe, and not being able to incline more to one side than the other, because its center is everywhere the same distance from the surface, it necessarily rests upon itself, since a weight which is everywhere equal cannot lean to either side. It is not, they go on, without reason or by chance that the earth occupies the center of the universe. It is its natural and necessary position. As the celestial body occupies the higher extremity of space, all heavy bodies, they argue, that we must suppose to have fallen from these high regions, will be carried from all directions to the center, and the point towards which the parts are tending will evidently be the one to which the whole mass will be thrust together. If stones, wood, all terrestrial bodies, fall from above downwards, this must be the proper and natural place of the whole earth. If, on the contrary, a light body is separated from the center, it is evident that it will ascend towards the higher regions. Thus heavy bodies move from the top to the bottom, and following this reasoning, the bottom is none other than the center of the world. Do not then be surprised that the world never falls. It occupies the center of the universe, its natural place. By necessity, it is obliged to remain in its place, unless a movement contrary to nature should displace it. Nor will you ask me upon what foundation the fluid element rests. By the same reason which makes them attract the earth, heavier than water, from the extremities of the world to suspend it in the center. And that is from St. Basil the Hexameron. Since the sky covers everything from his bosom, and gathered itself is infinite, and that's the surrounding land and floats in the middle, and that all bodies rotate around a point is stable and solid, if not necessarily that the elements that are above ground too and lie beneath him, for the one and the same substance surrounds the mass of the earth. End quote. St. Gregory of Nyssa on the soul and resurrection. Quote, "This is the book of the generation of heaven and earth, saith the scripture, Genesis 2:1. When all that is seen was finished, and each of the things that are betook itself to its own separate place, when the body of heaven compassed all things round, and those bodies which are heavy and of downward tendency, the earth and the water, holding each other in, took the middle place of the universe." While as a sort of bond and stability for the things that were made, the divine power and skill was implanted in the growth of things, guiding all things with the reins of a double operation, for it was by rest and motion that it devised the genesis of the things that were not, and the continuance of the things that are. This continually augments the whirling motion of those things which revolve round it. And intensity is produced in equal measure in each of the natures which thus differ in their operation. In the stationary nature, I mean, and in the mobile revolution. For neither is the earth shifted from its own base, nor does the heaven ever relax in its vehemence or slacken its motion. End quote. St. Gregory of Nyssa on the making of man. The earth, which bears the same proportion to the heaven as the center to the whole circumference of a wheel. For the earth is no more than this in comparison with the heaven. St. Cyril of Jerusalem. Catechetical Lectures. Let not the philosophers, then, think to upset our faith with arguments from the weight of bodies, for I don't care to inquire why they cannot believe an earthly body can be in heaven, while the whole earth is suspended on nothing. For perhaps the world, i.e. the earth, keeps its central place by the same law that attracts to its center all heavy bodies. End quote. The Blessed Augustine, City of God. For they who are mad imagine that nothing stands still, yet this arises not from the objects that are seen, but from the eyes that see, because they are unsteady and giddy. They think that the earth turns round with them, which yet turns not, but stands firm. The derangement is of their own state, not from any affection of the element. End quote. St. John Chrysostom, Homily on Titus. And again, the earth is fixed, but the waters are continually in motion, and not the waters only, but the clouds, and the frequent and successive showers, which return at their proper season. St. John Chrysostom, Homilies to Antioch. But as well as the earth stands according to its nature, when does the water take the bottom course? End quote. End quote. By working in masterly way and adorning the world, he has ordained in 6 days the proper settlement and order to each that were his own, and filled the world, separating each only by his command, and, as he would be removed from hidden treasures, brought to the sight the hidden, dividing them and gathering them all this together, in a harmonic and highly careful way, each one for all, and all for each. And to the unmoved earth was ordained around, as to a center, a circle sitting very high up, and in a very skillful way he linked the eternally moving heaven by those in the middle, so that the world remained both steadfast and moving. For the bodies in continuous and fast moving are seated in a circle, and what is unmoved necessarily got the middle place, with the counterweight for its movement against the stillness, not to move out of place, like a cylinder, the sphere of the universe. St. Gregory Palamas, Homilies. And some all-round coverage is the sky of all created things, visible and invisible. Inside it are also the rational powers of the angels, and all the sensible things, the stars, and everything else, including the earth itself, which is a point and a center to all world. Which is said to be the realm of the blessed, of which the uppermost part is the all sides roundness, and the lowest one is the middle, where the earth as a center sits motionless, as the old wise men outside and the divine scripture also teaches. Again, St. Athanasius of Paros, Dogmatics. And a witness of our time, wise Father Seraphim Rose, 20th century. Quote, but divine revelation, as interpreted by the Holy Fathers, tells us the contrary, that the earth comes first both in time and in significance, and the sun comes second. If our minds were not so chained to the intellectual fashions of the times, if we were not so fearful of being thought behind the times, we would not have such difficulty in opening our minds to this alternative explanation of the world's beginnings. In the scriptural patristic view of the earth, as the home of man, the pinnacle of God's creation is the center of the universe. Everything else, no matter what the scientific explanation of its present state and movement, or the physical immensity of it in comparison to the earth, is secondary, and was made for the sake of the earth, that is, for man. End quote. The Father Seraphim Rose Genesis, Creation and Early Man. Let's not forget the other crucial thing that makes the earth to be unique in all the universe, above all other heavenly bodies. Here was made also the heaven, paradise, the Garden of Eden, Genesis 2:8. So, wishing the too wise and good Creator, being sympathetic to the reasonable man, for who built and beautified the whole world, a special place on the earth, and especially more beautiful, more honored, as a royal city for the one who would be king of the earth. He prepared on the forehand the all-litten paradise. I say, he planted it in the east, for which also St. John Damascus says so in the Book for Orthodox Faith. Quote, now when God was about to fashion man out of the visible and invisible creation, in his own image and likeness, to reign as king and ruler over all the earth and all that it contains, he first made for him, so to speak, a kingdom, in which he should live a life of happiness and prosperity. And this is the divine paradise, planted in Eden by the hands of God, a very storehouse of joy and gladness of heart, for Eden means luxuriousness. But the old fathers as Irenaeus, Justin, Athanasius, Epiphanius, and others with a union speak for paradise on earth, in whom was Adam. And the fact that paradise was created on earth, as the highest place of all creation, the proper place for the one that would be her master, the man, makes the earth the most valuable body of the universe. Summarizing the above to review. 1. The earth is flat, hard, dense, stable, unmoved, and stands in the midst of heaven, the universe, suspended on nothing. 2. The earth is not a planet. 3. The earth has also the ontological primacy over all other celestial bodies as a first done. 4. It is the only center of the universe. 5. It is the only fixed and unmoved body outside the special circumstances of the earthquake, but these, however, are not extensive and continuous rotations or movements, but accidents. 6. It is the only celestial body which bears life. 7. On it was created the man. 8. Here was created the paradise, the Garden of Eden, heaven. 9. Here was the Savior incarnate, lived and worked the stewardship of our salvation, was crucified, resurrected, and ascended to heaven. Here will he come with glory, to judge the living and the dead. Even if it will be a new heaven and a new earth, the essential data is not changed. William Blake, The Book of Job. 1. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Matthew 6:9, Luke 11:2. Thus did Job continually. Job 1:5. There was a man in the land of Uz, whose name was Job, and that man was perfect and upright, and one that feared God, and eschewed evil. And there was born unto him 7 sons and 3 daughters. Job 1:1-2. The letter killeth, but the spirit giveth life. 2 Corinthians 2:14. They are spiritually discerned. 1 Corinthians 2:14. Plate 2. I beheld the Ancient of Days. Daniel 7:9. Hast thou considered my servant Job? Job 1:8. The angel of the divine presence, but Hebrew letters beneath his name identify him as King Jehovah, from S. Foster Damon, Blake's Job, from E.P. Dutton 1966. Shall I see God? Job 19:26. Thou art our Father. Isaiah 64. When I awake with thy likeness. Psalm 17:15. When the Almighty was yet with me, when my children were about me. Job 29:5. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. Job 1:6. Plate 3. The fire of God is fallen from heaven. Job 1:16. And the Lord said unto Satan, Behold, all that he hath is in thy power. Job 1:12. Thy sons and thy daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house. And behold, there came a great wind from the wilderness, and smote the 4 corners of the house, and it fell among the young men, and they are dead. Job 1:18-19. Plate 4. And there came a messenger unto Job, and said, The oxen were plowing, and the Sabeans fell upon them. And yea, they have slain the servants with the edge of the sword. Job 1:14-15. From going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. Job 1:7. And I only am escaped alone to tell thee. Job 1:15. While he was yet speaking, there came also another, and said, The fire of God is fallen from heaven, and hath burned up the sheep and the servants, and consumed them. And I only am escaped alone to tell thee. Job 1:16. Plate 5. Did I not weep for him that was in trouble? Was not my soul grieved for the poor? Job 30:25. Behold, he is in thine hand, but save his life. Job 2:6. So Satan went forth from the presence of the Lord, Job 1:12, and it grieved him at his heart, Genesis 6:6. Who maketh his angels spirits, his ministers of flaming fire, Psalm 104:4. Plate 6. Naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Job 1:21. And smote Job with sore boils from the sole of his foot unto his crown. Job 2:7. Plate 7. What? Shall we receive good at the hand of God? And shall we not receive evil? Job 2:10. And when they lifted up their eyes afar off and knew him not, they lifted up their voice and wept. And they rent everyone his mantle, and sprinkled dust upon their heads toward heaven. Job 2:12. Ye have heard of the patience of Job, and have seen the end of the Lord. James 5:11. Plate 8. Lo, let that night be solitary. Let no peaceful voice come therein. Job 3:7. Let the day perish wherein I was born. Job 3:3. So they sat down with him upon the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and none spake a word unto him, for they saw that his grief was very great. Job 2:13. Plate 9. Shall mortal man be more just than God? Shall a man be more pure than his Maker? Behold, he put no trust in his servants, and his angels he charged with folly. Job 4:17-18. Then a spirit passed before my face, the hair of my flesh stood up. Job 4:15. Plate 10. But he knoweth the way that I take. When he hath tried me, I shall come forth as gold. Job 23:10. Have pity upon me, have pity upon me, O ye my friends, for the hand of God hath touched me. Job 19:21. Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. Job 13:15. The just upright man is laughed to scorn. Job 12:4. Man that is born of a woman is of few days, and full of trouble. He cometh forth like a flower, and is cut down. He fleeth also as a shadow, and continueth not. And dost thou open thine eyes upon such an one, and bringest me into judgment with thee? Job 14:1-3. Plate 12. My bones are pierced in me in the night season, and my sinews take no rest. Job 30:17. My skin is black upon me, and my bones are burned with heat. Job 30:30. The triumphing of the wicked is short, and the joy of the hypocrite but for a moment. Job 20:5. For Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. His ministers also be transformed as the ministers of righteousness. 2 Corinthians 11:14-15. Then thou scarest me with dreams, and terrifiest me through visions. Job 12:14. Why do ye persecute me as God, and are not satisfied with my flesh? Oh, that my words were now written. Oh, that they were printed in a book, that they were graven with an iron pen and lead into the rock forever. For I know that my Redeemer liveth, and that he shall stand at the latter day upon the earth. And though after my skin worms destroy this body, yet in my flesh shall I see God, whom I shall see for myself, and mine eyes shall behold, and not another, though my reins be consumed within me, though consumed be my wrought image. Who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worship? In the above text, Job 19:22-27. 2 Thessalonians 2:4. Plate 12. For God speaketh once, yea, twice, yet man perceiveth it not. Job 33:14. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falleth upon men, in slumbering upon the bed. Then he openeth the ears of men, and sealeth their instruction. that he may withdraw man from his purpose and hide pride from man. If there be a messenger with him, an interpreter, one among 1,000, then he is gracious unto him, and saith, Deliver him from going down into the pit. I have found a ransom. For his eyes are upon the ways of men, and he seeth all his goings. I am young, and ye are very old, wherefore I was afraid. Lo, all these things worketh God oftentimes with man, to bring back his soul from the pit, to be enlightened with the light of the living. Look unto the heavens and see, and behold the clouds which are higher than thou. If thou sinnest, what doest thou against him? If thou be righteous, what givest thou him? Those verses are from Job 33:14, 33:15, 16, 17, 23 through 24, 21, Job 34:21, Job 32:6, Job 33:29 and 30, Job 35:5, and Job 35:6 and 7, and on to plate 13. Who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge? Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind. Who maketh the clouds his chariot? Who walketh upon the wings of the wind? Hath the rain a father? Or who hath begotten the drops of dew? That's Job 38:2, 38:1, Psalms 104:3, and Job 38:28. Plate 14. Canst thou bind the sweet influences of Pleiades, or loose the bands of Orion? Job 38:31. When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy. Let there be light, let there be a firmament, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear. And God made 2 great lights. Let the waters bring forth abundantly. Let the earth bring forth the living creature, cattle and creeping thing, the beast of the earth. That's Job 38:31, Job 38:7, Genesis 1:3, Genesis 1:6, Genesis 1:9, Genesis 1:16, Genesis 1:20, and Genesis 1:24. Plate 15. Also, can any understand the spreadings of the clouds, or the noise of his tabernacle? Also, be watering he wearieth the thick cloud, he scattereth his bright cloud, and it is turned round about his counsels. Behold now Behemoth, he is the chief of the ways of God. He is a king over all the children of pride. Behold now Behemoth, which I made with thee. That's Job 36:29, 37:11-2, 40:15 and 19, Job 41:34, and Job 40:15. Plate 16. Hell is naked before him, and destruction hath no covering. Job 26:6. Canst thou by searching find out God? Canst thou find out the Almighty unto perfection? Job 11:7. The accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accuse them before our God day and night. Revelations 12:10. It is as high as heaven. What canst thou do? Deeper than hell. What canst thou know? Now shall the prince of this world be cast out. But thou hast fulfilled the judgment of the wicked. Even the devils are subject unto us through thy name. And he said unto them, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven. But God hath chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise, and God hath chosen the weak things of the world to confound the things which are mighty. And that is from Job 11:8, John 12:31, Job 36:17, Luke 10:17 and 18, and 1 Corinthians 1:27. Plate 17. He bringeth down to the grave and bringeth up. 1 Samuel 2:6. We know that when he shall appear, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. 1 John 3:2. When I consider thy heavens, the work of thy fingers, the moon and the stars, which thou hast ordained, what is man, that thou art mindful of him, and the son of man, that thou visiteth him? Psalm 8:3 and 4. I have heard of thee by the hearing of the ear, but now mine eye seeth thee. Job 42:5. He that hath seen me hath seen the Father. John 14:9. I and my Father are one. John 10:30. If ye had known me, ye should have known my Father also, and from henceforth ye know him, and have seen him. Believe me that I am in the Father, and the Father in me. He that loveth me shall be loved of my Father, for he dwelleth with you, and shall be in you. At that day ye shall know that I am in my Father, and ye in me, and I in you. If ye loved me, ye would rejoice, because I said, I go unto the Father. He that loveth me shall be loved of my Father, and I will love him, and will manifest myself to him. And my Father will love him, and we will come unto him, and make our abode with him. And the Father shall give you another Comforter, that he may abide with you forever, even the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive. 1 Samuel 2:6, 1 John 3:2, Psalm 7:3 and 4, Job 42:5, John 14:9, John 10:30, John 14:7, John 14:11, John 14:21, John 14:17, John 14:28, John 14:21, John 14:23, John 14:16, and John 14:17. Plate 18. The Lord also accepted Job, and my servant Job shall pray for you. And the Lord turned the captivity of Job when he prayed for his friends. But I say unto you, love your enemies. Bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them that despitefully use you and persecute you, that ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. For he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sendeth rain on the just and the unjust. Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. Those are verses. Job 42:9, Job 42:8, Job 42:10, Matthew 5:44, Matthew 5:45, and Matthew 5:48. Plate 19. The Lord maketh poor and maketh rich. He bringeth low and lifteth up. 1 Samuel 2:7. Who provideth for the raven his food, when his young ones cry unto God? Job 38:41. Every man also gave him a piece of money. Job 42:11. Who remembered us in our low estate, for his mercy endureth forever. Psalm 136:23. Plate 20. How precious also are thy thoughts unto me, O God! How great is the sum of them. Psalm 139:17. And in all the land were found no women so fair as the daughters of Job, and their father gave them inheritance among their brethren. Job 42:15. If I ascend up into heaven, thou art there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, thou art there. Psalm 139:8. Plate 21. Great and marvelous are thy works, Lord God Almighty. Just and true are thy ways, thou King of saints. Revelation 15:3. So the Lord blessed the latter end of Job more than his beginning. After this, Job lived 140 years, and saw his sons, and his sons' sons, even 4 generations. So Job died being old and full of days. In burnt offerings and sacrifices for sin thou hast had no pleasure. And those are verses. Revelation 15:3, Job 42:12, Job 42:16 and 17, and Hebrews 10:6. the Earth's true position in the universe, comparatively recent formation, present chemical condition, and approaching destruction by fire. It has been demonstrated that the Earth is a plane. The surface center of which is immediately underneath the star called Polaris. And the extremities of which are bounded by a vast region of ice and water, and irregular masses of land, which bear evidence of plutonic or fiery action and origin. In the geological structure of extreme northern regions, the sedimentary strata are abundant and of vast extent, while the constitution of Antarctic strata seems, on the contrary, as far yet examined, entirely igneous. The whole terminates in fog and darkness, where snow and driving hail, piercing sleet and boisterous winds, howling storms, madly mounting waves, and clashing icebergs are almost constant. The waves rise like mountains in height. Ships are heaved up to the clouds and apparently precipitated by circling whirlpools to the bed of the ocean. The winds are piercing cold and so boisterous that the pilot's voice can seldom be heard, whilst a dismal and almost continual darkness adds greatly to the danger. How far in the gloom and darkness of the south this wilderness of storm and battling elements extends, there is at present no evidence. All we can say is that man, with all his mightiest daring and power of endurance, has only succeeded in reaching the threshold of this restless, dark, and forbidding region of the material world. The earth rests upon and within the waters of the great deep. It is a vast floating island, buoyed up by the waters and held in its place by long spurs of land shooting into the icy barriers of the southern circumference. Geological researches demonstrate that it was originally a stratified structure, definite and regular in form and extent, and that all the confused and irregular formations observable in almost every part have resulted from internal convulsions. Chemical analysis proves to us the important fact that the great bulk of the earth, meaning thereby the land, as distinct from the waters, is composed of metallic oxides, or metals in combination with oxygen, and also with sulfur, chlorine, carbon, and other elements. When means are taken to remove the oxygen, it is found that many of these metallic bases are highly combustible. Experiments with electric and other subtle powers of nature render it obvious that all the elements of the earth were originally in a state of gaseous solution, or dissolved in the great menstruum of the material world, electricity. That by a sudden abstraction of this great and universal solvent, the elements were liberated, and owing to the different affinities and relative densities which had been attached to them, combination, precipitation, stratification, crystallization, and concretion successively occurred, giving rise to all the rocks, minerals, ores, deposits, and strata, which now constitute the material habitable world. That by the action of unconcrete or gaseous unprecipitated elements and free electric and actinic forces upon pre-existing germs, all the numerous forms of animal and vegetable life were brought into being, and are now maintained. However great such operations may seem to the mind of present man, all the vast structure of the physical world, and its innumerable myriads of organic beings, were the work of only a few hours. It is easily demonstrable that so rapid and intense were the processes and chemical changes, that a few days, such as we now understand by the word, were ample time to bring out of invisible, imponderable chaos all the tangible and varied elements which now exist. and to develop every possible form of beauty and elegance, and every condition of happiness and wisdom. All opinions to the contrary which are held by philosophers of the present day are the result of insufficient perception of the whole subject, which insufficient perception is again the result of self-imposed hypotheses, which bias the judgment and confuse the understanding. No man, however learned and accomplished he may be, is able to understand the simple processes of creative effort, unless he is himself a simple and humble observer of phenomena, free from the prejudices of education, and anxious only for a knowledge of the truth as it exists in reality, and not in desire and imagination. Not only is it readily demonstrable that the material world was brought into being rapidly, perfect in structure and fully sufficient in all its conditions, but that only a few thousand years have elapsed since it began to change in form and character. Mental and moral confusion followed by a decomposition in chemical and electric action, sufficient to ignite a great portion of the earth, and to reduce it to a molten incandescent state. Hence for ages the earth has been on fire, the volatile products of this internal fire being forcibly eliminated, and occasionally accumulating and exploding, have broken up the stratified formations and produced the irregular, confused condition which we now observe. Hence have arisen earthquakes, volcanoes, and other convulsions of nature. The products of volcanic action enable us to ascertain the character of the internal fire, and what are the elements concerned in the combustion. Some of these products are of a poisonous character, and being thrown out in immense volumes from craters in various parts of the earth, are dispersed by the wind and diffused through the atmosphere, often in such proportions as to act as deadly poison on both animal and vegetable life. Hence, blight and pestilence in various forms, destroying crops and inferior animals, and affecting numbers of human beings to suffering and death. When we consider the composition of the earth and its aqueous foundations, that it is a vast structure of metallic oxides, sulfurates, and chlorides, intermingled with immense strata of compounds of carbon and hydrogen, and that, as we have already shown, a great portion of the lower parts of the earth is in a molten incandescent state, the earth itself is an extended plain, resting in and upon the waters of the great deep, fitly comparable to a large vessel or ship floating at anchor, with its hold or lower compartments beneath the waterline filled with burning materials. Our knowledge of the nature and action of fire does not enable us to understand in what way the combustion can be prevented from extending when these burning materials are known to be surrounded with highly inflammable substances. Wherever a fire is surrounded with heterogeneous materials, some highly combustible and others partially or indirectly so, it is not possible in the ordinary course of nature for it to remain continually in the same condition, nor to diminish in extent and intensity. It must necessarily increase and extend itself. That this is the case is corroborated by many phenomena. The total of volcanic action is greater than it has ever been since man commenced to observe and record his observations. As the fire is gradually increasing and creeping upwards towards the thousands of miles of veins and strata filled with carbonaceous fuel, it is not possible, unless the course of nature is arrested by some special interference, for the earth to remain in its present concrete condition. The day is not far distant, nay, even now at any moment some sudden convulsive upheaving of the fiery gulf below, until it reaches and lays bare some of the lower beds of hydrocarbon, which dip at various angles from the general strata, may set them on fire. The flames would then rapidly extend and the fiery action swiftly run along the various and innumerable veins of combustible matter, which ramify in every direction throughout the whole earth. Should such an action once commence, knowing as we do that the rocks and minerals and general constituents of the earth are only oxides of inflammable bases, or of substances directly combustible, and that the affinities of these are greatly altered in the presence of highly heated carbon and hydrogen, we see clearly that such a chemical action or fire would rapidly increase in intensity, and fiercely rush in all directions, until the whole earth, with everything entering into its composition and dwelling upon and within it, would perish, decompose, and volatilize, and burst into one vast, indescribable, annihilating conflagration. the elements burning with fervent heat, again dissolving in the great solvent medium, electricity, there to remain until some creative mandate shall liberate and again precipitate and stratify them for the formation of another world, perhaps less discordant and more enduring than the present. If we saw a number of persons on some huge raft, tossed up and down on the surface of the ocean, we should naturally feel alarmed for their safety. And if we were told that so far from being apprehensive of danger, they fancied their position one of imminent security, that they pointed with pride to the thickness and solidity of the timber under their feet, laughing to scorn every suggestion that their footing might by and by prove less sound than they imagined, we should conclude that their minds must be strangely constituted. Does it not seem extraordinary, then, that so little should be thought of a position far more perilous, in which all the inhabitants of the earth are continually placed? Their position resembles, more nearly than we most of us think, that of persons floating on the surface of the sea, on a raft of great strength and thickness, it is true, but yet not proof against the fury of the waves, and liable to sudden disruption of its parts. The only difference is that the sea on which we are floating is a sea of liquid fire, the molten elements of the main substance of the earth. I will love thee, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer. My God, my strength, in whom I will trust, my buckler and the horn of my salvation, and my high tower. I will call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised. So shall I be saved from mine enemies. The sorrows of death compassed me, and the floods of ungodly men made me afraid. The sorrows of hell compassed me about, the snares of death prevented me. In my distress I called upon the Lord, and cried unto my God. He heard my voice out of his temple, and my cry came before him, even into his ears. Then the earth shook and trembled. The foundations also of the hills moved and were shaken, because he was wroth. There went up a smoke out of his nostrils, and fire out of his mouth devoured. Coals were kindled by it. He bowed the heavens also, and came down, and darkness was under his feet. And he rode upon a cherub, and did fly, yea, he did fly upon the wings of the wind. He made darkness his secret place. His pavilion round about him were dark waters, and thick clouds of the skies. At the brightness that was before him his thick clouds passed, hailstones and coals of fire. The Lord also thundered in the heavens, and the highest gave his voice, hailstones and coals of fire. Yea, he sent out his arrows and scattered them, and he shot out lightnings and discomfited them. Then the channels of waters were seen, the foundations of the world were discovered at thy rebuke, O Lord, at the blast of the breath of thy nostrils. He sent from above, he took me, he drew me out of many waters. He delivered me from my strong enemy, and from them which hated me, for they were too strong for me. They prevented me in the day of my calamity, but the Lord was my stay. He brought me forth also into a large place. He delivered me, because he delighted in me. The Lord rewarded me according to my righteousness. According to the cleanness of my hand hath he recompensed me. For I have kept the ways of the Lord, and have not wickedly departed from my God. For all his judgments were before me, and I did not put away his statutes from me. I was also upright before him, and I kept myself from mine iniquity. Therefore hath the Lord recompensed me according to my righteousness. according to the cleanness of my hands in his eyesight. With the merciful thou wilt show thyself merciful. With an upright man thou wilt show thyself upright. With the pure thou wilt show thyself pure. And with the froward thou wilt show thyself froward. For thou wilt save the afflicted people, but wilt bring down high looks. For thou wilt light my candle, the Lord my God will enlighten my darkness. For by thee I have run through a troop, and by my God have I leaped over a wall. As for God, his way is perfect. The word of the Lord is tried. He is a buckler to all those that trust in him. For who is God save the Lord? Or who is a rock save our God? It is God that girdeth me with strength, and maketh my way perfect. He maketh my feet like hinds' feet, and setteth me upon my high places. He teacheth my hands to war, so that a bow of steel is broken by mine arms. Thou hast also given me the shield of thy salvation, and thy right hand hath holden me up, and thy gentleness hath made me great. Thou hast enlarged my steps under me, that my feet did not slip. I have pursued mine enemies, and overtaken them. Neither did I turn again till they were consumed. I have wounded them that were not able to rise. They are fallen under my feet. For thou hast girded me with strength unto the battle. Thou hast subdued under me those that rose up against me. Thou hast also given me the necks of mine enemies, that I might destroy them that hate me. They cried, but there was none to save them, even unto the Lord, but he answered them not. Then did I beat them small as the dust before the wind. I did cast them out as the dirt in the streets. Thou hast delivered me from the strivings of the people, and thou hast made me the head of the heathen. A people whom I have not known shall serve me. As soon as they hear of me, they shall obey me. The strangers shall submit themselves unto me. The strangers shall fade away and be afraid out of their close places. The Lord liveth, and blessed be my rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted. It is God that avengeth me, and subdueth the people under me. He delivereth me from mine enemies. Yea, thou liftest me up above those that rise up against me. Thou hast delivered me from the violent man. Therefore will I give thanks unto thee, O Lord, among the heathen, and sing praises unto thy name. Great deliverance giveth he to his king, and showeth mercy to his anointed, to David, and to his seed forevermore. The King James Version. Axis, or a yearly orbital one, around the sun. These movements of the earth have not, as we shall see below, any sense, theologically, physically, or astronomically, being just some suggestions of some thinkers who have sought alternate explanations to the scriptural and patristic ones. Scriptural passages are found in many Psalms, 18, 15, 78, 75, 93:2, 96:10, 102:25. Thou didst set the earth on its foundations, so that it should never be shaken. Psalm 104:5. And in order not to be accused that we are stacked as the neo-Protestant fundamentalists, in the strictest literal sense of the word, we bring the interpretation of the blessed Theodoret of Cyrus, who laid the foundations of the earth, and Achille and Sema over his stay, that it should not be removed forever. Because putting the foundations over itself gave to it the stillness, and it will remain so as long as he, the Creator, wishes. Thus saith, and elsewhere, hanging the earth over nothing. Psalms 119:90, Thou hast established the earth, and it abideth. The blessed Theodoret, Thou hast established the earth, and it abideth. By thy order the days stay on. You gave the land long-lasting stability, and it remained as you commanded. Job 26:5 and 6, Job 38:4-8, Isaiah 13:10 through 13, Isaiah 44:23 and 24, Isaiah 48:13, Proverbs 3:19, 8:27 through 29. A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. Ecclesiastes 1:4. John 17:24, the Hebrew 1:10. Fear God, whose command was reinforced above the waters. The one who founded the earth on his strength and will not shake forever. Exorcisms at the Holy Baptism. The only exceptional case of earth motion is the earthquake, but in no case is it permanently rotating whatsoever, but demonstrates a temporary wobble or motion. 2 Samuel 22:8. The earth trembled and quaked. The foundations of the heavens shook. They trembled because he was angry. From 2 Samuel, Chronicles, Job, and Psalms and Isaiah, we have, the earth trembled and quaked. The foundations of the heavens shook. They trembled because he was angry. 1 Chronicles 16:30. Tremble before him, all the earth. The world is firmly established. It cannot be moved. Job 9:6. Who shakes the earth out of its place, and its pillars tremble? Which shaketh the earth out of her place, and the pillars thereof tremble. Psalm 46:3. Though its waters roar and foam, and the mountains quake with their surging. Psalms 16:2 and 77:18. Regarding the trembling of the earth, we have, you have shaken the land and torn it open. Mend its fractures, for it is quaking. Psalm 68:8. The earth shook, the heavens poured down rain before God, the one of Sinai, before God, the God of Israel. Psalm 77:18. Your thunder was heard in the whirlwind, your lightning lit up the world. The earth trembled and quaked. Now from Isaiah 13:13. Therefore I will make the heavens tremble, and the earth will shake from its place, at the wrath of the Lord Almighty, in the day of the earth. From the beginning, God made heaven and earth. For those who believe exactly this, the position, the location of the earth in the cosmos, or space, could be only one, at the center, geocentric, and in terms of motion, stationary, unmoved, geostatic. Scriptural passages about the stability, immobility of the earth. If you can rightly say that Scripture does not indicate anywhere that the earth is strictly in the middle of the universe, however, it is clearly stated that it is still, unmoving, immobile, or geostatic. This excludes in texts related to these things, absolutely, any rotational movement, be it a daily one on its his burning anger. For I will shake the heavens, the earth will move from its place when the Lord of heaven's armies displays his wrath in the day of his fierce anger. And again now from the King James Bible. Therefore I will shake the heavens, and the earth shall remove out of her place, in the wrath of the Lord of hosts, and in the day of his fierce anger. 24:18 from the NIV. Whoever flees at the sound of terror will fall into a pit. Whoever climbs out of the pit will be caught in a snare. The floodgates of the heavens are opened. The foundations of the earth shake. And from the King James Bible. And it shall come to pass, that he who fleeth from the noise of the fear shall fall into the pit. And he that cometh up out of the midst of the pit shall be taken in the snare. For the windows from on high are open, and the foundations of the earth do shake. As to this subject, what need is there to discuss whether the earth hangs in the air or rests on the water? From this would arise a controversy as to whether the nature of the air, which is slight and yielding, is such as to sustain a mass of earth. Also, the question would arise, if the earth rested on the waters, would not the earth by its weight fall and sink into the waters? Or would not the waters of the sea give way to the earth, and move from its accustomed place? Would not the sea pour itself over the borders of the land? There are many, too, who have maintained that the earth, placed in the midst of the air, remains motionless there by its own weight. As to this subject, let us reflect on what was said by the Lord to his servant Job, when he spoke through the clouds. Then the Lord spoke to Job out of the storm. He said, "Who is this that obscures my plans with words without knowledge? Brace yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me if you understand who marked off its dimensions. Surely you know. Who stretched a measuring line across it? On what were its footings set? Or who laid its cornerstone? While the morning stars sang together, and all the angels shouted for joy. Who shut up the sea behind doors, when it burst forth from the womb? When I made the clouds its garment, and wrapped it in thick darkness? When I fixed limits for it, and set its doors and bars in place? When I said, this far you may come and no farther. Here is where your proud waves halt. Have you ever given orders to the morning, or shown the dawn its place, that it might take the earth by the edges, and shake the wicked out of it? The earth takes shape like clay under a seal. Its features stand out like those of a garment. The wicked are denied their light, and their upraised arm is broken. Have you journeyed to the springs of the sea, or walked in the recesses of the deep? Have the gates of death been shown to you? Have you seen the gates of the deepest darkness? Have you comprehended the vast expanses of the earth? Tell me if you know all this. What is the way to the abode of light? And where does darkness reside? Can you take them to their places? Do you know the paths to their dwellings? Surely you know, for you were already born. You have lived so many years. Have you entered the storehouses of the snow, or seen the storehouses of the hail, which I reserve for times of trouble, for days of war and battle? What is the way to the place where the lightning is dispersed, or the place where the east winds are scattered over the earth? Who cuts a channel for the torrents of rain, and a path for the thunderstorm, to water a land where no one lives, an uninhabited desert, to satisfy a desolate wasteland, and make it sprout with grass? Does the rain have a father? Who fathers the drops of dew? From whose womb comes the ice?